Hello and welcome to the Indo GA podcast, and we have a Christmas special for you today. And Pat even has a bit of tinsel in the background and maybe even a bit of holly, I think. Pat Spillane, how are you doing?
Yes, first of all, Michael, wish you happy Christmas and wish happy Christmas to all our listeners and viewers. And thanks to my floor manager, Rory, for the Christmas decorations. We've got into the spirit. So happy Christmas. So I'm in a good mood. We're in a festive mood already.
Good man. How do you usually celebrate Christmas, Pat? In front of the telly, I'd say.
Yeah. I'm afraid I'm not involved in the cooking. I'm not involved in buying of any presents.
I'm shocked by that now. I'm shocked by that.
So my involvement is basically I will go and get like beer, all right, just in case. That's the only thing. But my job is just to watch TV, eat and drink.
And be merry.
And I get away. It's a lovely time. And all the family are home. So that's great.
Great time of the year. There's obviously some very happy clubs around the country having with recent success, and they're flying into Christmas and looking ahead to the new year to an All-Ireland semi-final. Scottstown is a great starting point, Pat. They obviously had great success, back 30, 40 years ago. But I know from chatting to the likes of Darren Hughes and Kieran Hughes and these lads, they, as good as they have been for the club and as good as they've been for the county, they never felt like they would be recognised or appreciated to the same degree as the previous Scottstown greats, because they didn't have an Ulster title beside their name, and now they have it. And it's a classic case of just persist, just keep showing up, and they kept showing up, and they eventually got their rewards last weekend against Kilcoo.
It's a fair point, because it's a point that's similarly echoed in Kerry for the last number of years, because they were saying, David, Clifford, Shawnee, all the boys, one All-Ireland medal, and I think it was getting to the likes of David. One All-Ireland medal is poor effort for what their skill and whatever like that. And I could imagine in Scottstown, Rory with his father, and they have provincial medals and all that. So the pressure was on them. And like, there was one clip I saw on social media during the week of Shane Kerry's sister, the Kerry.
Yeah.
She got married to Ryan McInespia, and like, it's just, it epitomises all about the club and the effort fellas make to play for the club and the love of the club. Like, the lads went to their sister's wedding, then went to the match, and obviously I presume went back. But the joy and happiness of the bride and all her family after Scottstown's victory, it just, in a moment, it encapsulates everything that's just so beautiful about the club and its success and how important the club is. And like, Scottstown have done it the hard way, they going to take penalties against Newbridge. And again, the last day, they were the better team all through. And they dug out a victory. They never, the key players like the Hugheses, Rory Beggan, magnificent, Ryan O'Toole, magnificent. The heads never dropped. They stuck to their game plan, and it was one of those games like at the start. And I was writing about it for next Sunday. At the start of the game, particularly the first half, I was shouting at the television. I said, "This is awful shite." And it's not many times this year that I've shouted at a TV or a screen saying this is awful, because we've had such a brilliant year for Gaelic football. And I watched Kilcoo playing. Do you remember the Father Ted over 75 indoor soccer tournament? There was more movement in that than by Kilcoo in last week. Scottstown had obviously decided we're not going to get caught for soccer goals like we were before. So they sat back and didn't bother engaging, and Kilcoo just walked around with the football. And at the end of the day, possession is hard earned in Gaelic football, and the key with winning possession is that you should try to translate possession into scores as often as you can. And obviously Kilcoo had a game plan, but to me it's a game plan from the old ages that the coaches in, shall I say, Ulster have been adopting for years, and they're slow to adopt to a new game where transition is important, where the kicking game is important, where playing at a high tempo is important. And the vital thing is that you get the ball up to the forwards before the 11 defenders have set up. Guess why? That's why Kerry have won an All-Ireland. So Kilcoo, caveman tactics, antiquated tactics. Yeah, I get this thing, game management and whatever like that, and trying to keep the ball away from Scottstown because Scottstown had to win. But like, you look at the attacking stats from Kilcoo last week. First score, 26 minutes. 46 minutes had elapsed and there was still only one score on the board. And the six Kilcoo starting forwards scored the grand total of how much? 1 point from play. Holy God, that's why they lost. But in fairness to Scottstown, they have a nice mix now this year of young and old. They've brought in from their successful minor team, the Maguires and whatever like that. But you like Rory Beggan's 2-point kicking is like watching. It's like watching Luke Littler playing darts or watching Rory driving. It's just so effortless, but it's so beautiful in its executions, so perfect in the process he goes through. No backlift, Littler no pressure, just stroke it over the bar. It was magnificent, and like he's the one player that has really, when the goalkeeper is now the highest scorer for a team, it just goes to show the way the new rules have evolved. But I particularly like the Warriors. That sometimes sport is cruel, and I've always said that that. You hate to see like Stephen Sherlock being on the losing end of a Munster final after scoring 16 points and being so magnificent. And you say sport is cruel. And I've watched some great players down through the years. And the Hughes brothers, I've huge admiration for those boys. They're the sort of warriors you wanted in every team. And yet there's no All-Ireland medal, there's no nothing. But just to see and they're in their late 30s now, their best footballing days are behind. But their leadership and their just brilliance last week. That point that Kieran Hughes kicked against the wind with the outside of the right foot, like it was Rory-esque, against the wind. It was absolutely magnificent. So fair play to I was absolutely thrilled for them. And you know what? One of the things I do, particularly after club matches, I love to watch the post-match celebrations because there's something about the club celebration that make it so different because it's your family, it's your friends, it's your neighbours that are jumping out onto the pitch. I watched some unbelievable games over. Like the best entertainment this weekend was from the J. I've watched everything. I watched the All-Ireland Ladies Junior Football Club final between Muckalee of Kilkenny and Cremon of Kerry. And Muckalee were winning by 5 points with 5 minutes to go. And Cremon brought it back. And then Muckalee got a free and scored. First to win an All-Ireland. First ever ladies football title going to Kilkenny. It was brilliant. But the cameraman went on the field and he was in the middle of the spectators. And there was just one beautiful moment. I don't know who the girl was involved, but obviously her husband and her children came up embracing. And I said, this is what club is about. The love and the passion and the families and the camaraderie. It was just beautiful.
It's gas.
And by the way, the best, and I watched, like I said, all sport. The best sporting entertainment I watched all weekend was the All-Ireland Kamogi final between Attenry and St. Finbarr. It was, outside the fact it was so exciting and the game finished in a draw, the skill level was absolutely brilliant. And that girl that won the player of the match, Trez O'Donoghue.
Trez Maher,
Trez Maher. 44 years of age with 3 children. She was absolutely brilliant. Joe Rabbitt's daughter playing, and she's waiting for an anterior cruciate ligament operation. Jess Gill, brilliant player. And she's just back after, I think, a couple of cruciates as well. That was the best. When I think about it, I was saying, I watched the biggest attendance in Ireland last week at a sporting event was in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And fair play to Páirc Uí Chaoimh to attract because they need revenue. And you're sort of saying, well, Jesus, lads, you got to admire the rugby guys because they managed to dupe almost 40,000 people to come to Páirc Uí Chaoimh to watch a Gloucester team who had decided we're fielding our B team. Jesus. And you got to watch the 40,000. You almost got to watch 2 teams whose only tactic seemed to be to kick the ball as high up into the cock sky as possible and to all run after it. Caveman tactics. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Rugby is the ugly duckling of sport at the moment, and they need the likes of Jim Gavin and the FRC to sort that out as well, because if they can sort out the ugly duckling that was Gaelic football, well, then they can sort out rugby. It needs help. Anyway, rant over.
Yeah, just something you said there, Pat. And it's probably like advancements in social media and that, but when you see like Ulster GA had a video put out of the final moments of the Ulster club football final, and like they're literally in people's faces. And then I saw when Camross won the intermediate camogi, it was the same. Like they're literally on top of people. Like it's great to be able to see that, because I'm up on level 7 and I can only see what I can see from up there. I can't see it close. It's brilliant that that type of footage is going into houses and phones and laptops all around the country, because as you say, when you see what it means to people and the emotion around it.
And you're right. And in that particular clip I think you're talking about, they focused on a Scottstown player with a Scottstown t-shirt or tracksuit top on him. And obviously it was just when either the final whistle blew or whatever. But just, if you could bottle the joy and the emotion, the happiness in that person's play. And it just summed up, it summed up everything about the club. And I actually saw, there was another clip of him that are obviously taken maybe from either that night or Monday, at the bar counter having a drink with Rory Beggan.
Yeah. Shane Rice, I think. Yeah, Shane Rice. He's a coach. He'd have a decent following on social media and that. But like,
I said, this is brilliant. This is what, like, I was talking about. I was trying to compile my highlights of the year, and like I said, look, it's been like. For years, and I said this at the start of the year too, Michael, for years I was on the Sunday game and I was this cranky, grumpy, cynical old fucking, a Statler or Waldorf, whichever one you wanted to call. And there was times I used to to say, maybe I'm being hard on the game, and maybe this isn't bad. Maybe I should use the words of enthralling, intriguing, and a chess-like game. And but I realised, the reason why I was cynical and the reason why I was cranky was I was merely I was being honest, and I was merely reflecting the shite I was watching unfold on the field. And like I said, this year, since we started this podcast, I think people have seen a different side of it, because I call it something as I see it. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. If it's a bad match, it's a bad match. But most of the time, 99% of the time that I've been watching Gaelic football matches this year, I've been just so enthused and so happy and so delighted and so glad. And it's brilliant that ever since we started this podcast, that really it's been positive, and it's been full of admiration for what the J have done, for what Charlotte Burns has done, for what Jim Gavin has done. And it's just brilliant. So it's lovely to be on a podcast saying nice things about really good games.
Yeah, just you mentioned, Pat, about Rory Beggan, and it was kind of funny the weekend it was. Rory Beggan's kicking, unbelievable. And then you look at where he could have been over in the NFL, and you see what Charlie Smith is doing over there. It's nuts, isn't it? Like, and even, a fella from Mayo Bridge getting to the heights that he is in the NFL is crazy as well. And Beggan could have easily been there. Probably the no pun intended, the reason why a punt wasn't taken on him is probably because of his age profile, and they wouldn't have seen that longevity. But there'd be no problem with him doing that in the NFL when you see what Charlie Smith is doing.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, there's no doubt about it that no different than with the AFL or with the women, with the women's Australian rules, that with the success of Charlie Smith and that score he got the last day for New Orleans Saints, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That they will be looking to more and more for kickers. I cannot understand why they haven't used punter, why they haven't gone to GA for punters, because as you know, in the GA, I mean, players are able to kick that ball long and high. And I think I've told you the story before that I got offered a trial with San Diego Chargers as a punter, and it's probably something I'd regret now. I'd say, Jesus, like, the ultimate in life is to get paid for professional sport. And I'm sorry I didn't go. I'm really sorry, because I know, could I have made it? Well, I could kick a ball high and long. Could I have made it? There was a strong possibility. But probably if you'd be talking with me today after my American football career, I'd be going through probably another costly divorce and just kicking my cocaine habit and whatever like that. So,
my God.
Maybe it's just as well off I stuck with Kerry. No, it is. But yeah, like, you have to admit what he's done, like, to follow your dreams. I've said this with the AFL, now with Kobe McDonald and all. Look, the ultimate in life is to get paid for your hobby or a sport, and that's i.e. playing sports. So fair play to Charlie Smith, and obviously regrets for Rory Beggan if he had got a gig, he wouldn't have been starring for Scottstown, and Scottstown wouldn't have been winning an Ulster club title. Now, it's it's interesting. I look at the club championships now, and you say there's 4 teams left. And after the county championships, to be quite honest, 3 of those were favourites. I mean, you expected Dingle to win Munster. You certainly expected Ballyborden to win Leinster. Bridges were favourites in Connacht, and probably Scottstown were second favourites to Kilcoo. So we have the 4 favourites and the 4 big guns left. So it's going to be a good championship. I will stick the bookies' favourites are Ballyborden, and I really, really fancy Ballyborden. I think they're a very balanced team, very, very well, very balanced, physically strong, very well coached, absolutely superb in transition, and that's the key in the modern game. And outside the Baskells, they have Sweeney and they have lots of scorers. And then, of course, the 3 imports. Pa Warden from Kerry is a huge loss to Kerry. He'd be good enough for the Kerry team. Pa Warden, you have Peter Healy, brilliant player, cornerback from Antrim. And, of course, the key man in the modern game, the athletic midfielder, and Keane Darcy is absolutely brilliant. So if I was a betting man, even though they're bad odds, I still fancy Ballyborden to win the All-Ireland Senior Club title.
Just wheel back to the San Diego thing for a second. So do you regret, like, was it an offer to go and sign, or was it an offer to go and trial, or what was the story there? And would you have loved to gone over and even just try it for a while?
I think it was close to being signing rather than a trial, because they were bringing me down to... Look, I done a kicking competition. I think I told you, I did a kicking competition after in the Superstars, and I did a kicking competition for NBC or ABC, one of the American networks. And I did a kicking competition with a kicker from the Dallas Cowboys, a guy called Raphael Seption. Now, the kicking was obviously from a tee and from the ground, but I was never a free taking Gaelic, even though he only beat me by 1 kick. But anyway, they got actually poor old Seption ended up in jail. He had a bad end to his playing career and his life. He was locked up in jail for some bad deeds afterwards. So anyway, there was representatives from San Diego there, and they said, "Can you kick the ball? We'd love to see how you are at punting." So, geez, I could kick it. And they were very, very keen. They were members of the owners, as far as I know, and they wanted me over. And I'm sorry, yeah, it should have been nice to, I was lucky to have got that opportunity. I was also, in my early days, I was selected on the Irish College's soccer team as a centre half. Wow. And at the time, I remember back, I was in college in Limerick, and I was being signed for Limerick. I can't remember what they were called at the time. In the 70s, I was being signed. They wanted to sign me for playing soccer with Limerick. So I did get opportunities of other sport, but I'm glad I stuck with Gaelic.
You didn't end up with a bad haul, in fairness.
No.
Just speaking of hauls, like the ladies' football at the weekend, Kilkerran and Clonberne doing 5 in a row. Like, unfortunately, Pat, you didn't get there. Unfortunately, fortunately for my own county, but to achieve that as a club and to keep coming back year after year. And I just love the fact even that it's like Willie Ward is the manager, his daughters are playing on the team, and then you have all the Divilies as well. It takes some drive and hunger to keep coming back year after year after year after year, and they've done it, and they've done it unbelievably well.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And for a small community in Galway, with pretty much to say, I think it's only something like 2 players are missing from the start to the, one of them, I think, as far as I remember, is Shane Walsh's sister. But 5 in a row. But it's not unique. And I mean, it's not unique. Like, that's not even the record in ladies' sport. You have Ballymacarbery in Watford, who had how many? Oh, geez, even more now, 8 or 9. And there was some other team as well. What other ladies' team had?
I don't know, but there's a history of juggernauts almost, like a take over, you know?
Obviously, you had the Kerry ladies football team in the 70s. They were a juggernaut as well. Mary Jo Curtin, that was playing that time when Kerry, was the greatest. And I'd say along with Cora Staunton, probably even better than Cora Staunton, Mary Jo Curtin was unbelievable. And unfortunately, they never got the credit. But, like, isn't that the key again? It goes back to the success of so many of the club teams. It's families. You know, no different than Scottstown with the Hugheses and with the Wards. I mean, with Kilkerran, Clonberne, it's the families, it's the Divilies, it's the Wards. With Dingle, it's the Gainies and it's the Sullivans or whatever like that. Families are the backbone to club success. And like I said, with club success, it's very much cyclical, it's particularly for small clubs, but it's just brilliant, and it was lovely to see. And like the money glass, story was a lovely story, because this is a tiny, tiny little village who came from nowhere to being a powerful team, and to beat another possible juggernaut in Kilmacud Crokes in the All-Ireland semi-final. So the ladies' football, I've enjoyed the ladies' football. If there is a fault, and thanks, I see they're starting to remedy the blanket defence. I thought I'd forgotten about the blanket defence. But I was watching, particularly in the junior final, when Muckalee were holding on to their 5-point lead. They just backed the bus. But I think it's a 12 new rule changes they're proposing. So they need that, because to make it an even more attractive and better game to both watch and play.
Can I just ask you actually about your own All-Ireland club success? I've kind of mentioned it briefly before. You know, like all the club successes now, like they're, you know, heroes and heroines around their local towns and villages. Like when you went back down to Thomond, did anyone even, like, was there much even paid to it? Like,
no, not a bit in the world. And I will say to this day that the 4 matches we played against Austin Stacks in the Munster Club Championship of 78, 79 was the best 4 matches ever in the club championship. All we had at the All-Ireland Club final, the day we played St. John's, was our family. Maybe there was 50 students from the college. That's about it. And signs on, I said this to you before, that All-Ireland Club final between Thomond College and St. John's, there is no video evidence of the game. There is no one. If somebody out there can find it, I would love to see it. And like, that's only 78 or 79, whatever year it was, and no video evidence. I think the RT or whoever was filming, they just destroyed the tape.
They didn't want any record of your All-Ireland club success, Pat. None whatsoever.
No.
But we've put it out to viewers before. If anybody has that footage, and if anybody has a Pat Spillane jersey that he wore throughout his career, because I believe you don't have one, sure you don't. You never held on to one.
No, no. There's one in the bar now belong to me, but I have no jersey. And to something, because my son Pat loves collecting jerseys, and it was one of the regrets I have, you know, that at the time it sounded like a great idea. It seemed like a good idea where you exchange jerseys with. And there were some lovely jerseys. I remember Derry had a white jersey with a red stripe down in 76 or 77, and I swapped that. But you know, all those Dublin jerseys and Cork jerseys, when you looked at them, they meant nothing at all, you know. They meant nothing. Whereas I'd love to have the Kerry jerseys. I'd love to have some of the Kerry jerseys. I'd love to know. I met a fellow in Croke Park, going to Croke Park last year, and he said to me, he said, my son has one of your Kerry jersey. And it's a small world. One of the Sligo management team who has Kerry connections, one of the new members of Sligo's management team, he said to Pat Jr. at the first train, he said, believe it or not, he said, your dad brought me upstairs in the bar and gave me one of his Kerry jerseys.
Stop.
I must have given away last of them.
But a call to arms, if anybody has one, it'd be a lovely Christmas present for Pat, or a New Year's present, or a belated 70th present, whatever you like. Pat, just a quick one. Patrick McBrearty has hung up the boots. Injuries have hit him like it's gas. Like, what a lengthy career, and even playing minor and senior in the same day as a 17-year-old. It's an awful pity. Like, what a sweet kicker.
I loved watching Patrick McBrearty. My passion, my skill was kicking, and I love to watch kickers with a lovely kicking action. Patrick McBrearty, when he went on that left foot, it was just beautiful, and he did everything exactly the way. Do you know, the shoulder pointing towards the goal, the right foot planked on the ground, the purchase on the ball, the follow through. Oh, he was unbelievable. And did I read something this morning? And this is the injustice of it all. Now, he has an All-Ireland medal, but he has no All-Star. Is that correct?
Oh Jesus, you're putting me on the spot there. I'll have to get the lads to check in the studio. Jesus, you could be. Jesus, I feel he should have won.
You'd think he should have won, but he was one of the modern era. I mean, he was one of the greats. He was just like when he dummied to go on that left foot. Oh,
and you kind of knew what he was going to do, but it was so hard to stop it, wasn't it?
But isn't that the brilliance of a great player? A great player has that ability to create time and space in just a fraction. Look, I wouldn't class myself as good a kicker as David Clifford or anything, but like I could only kick with the right foot, but like I still managed without a left foot to always get the ball away. Now we were lucky in the time the way it hand passing, but yeah, Patrick McBrearty. Do you know sport again? Go back. Like if he was in Kerry, he'd have 2 or 3 All-Ireland medals. He'd have 2 or 3 All-Stars. He'd be, you know, and he soldiered for so many years, and like he had. No different than me. He had the dreaded ACL injuries a couple of times and still came back. A warrior from one of the most beautiful parts of Ireland, Kilcar. Great little club, scenic area. Oh, great. Geez, he's just a legend. He's just, you know, we're losing. Like I was trying to write one of my highlights there. And I said, you know, the return of Michael Murphy was a highlight for me in 2025 because he was one of the greats of the modern era, and you start to say, well, we'll never see him again. And we got the opportunity. He came back again, and he played the same way as he was before he left. And so we're losing a lot. When you see Brian, now obviously Paddy with injuries, but when you see Brian Finton announcing again that he's definitely not coming back, and you know, like he's entitled to do whatever he wants, but you start to say, I'd love to see him play again. He was such a beautiful, and you know, could he still play? Has he another year or two at senior level? He has, of course, but you know, life moves on, and you know, committing to an inter-county career is a full-time job. And like I can see with McBrearty, there wasn't 70 minutes in his leg. He wasn't being used as an impact player. And even when he came on in the All-Ireland, you know, he posed the threat.
He had a couple of shots, and strangely enough, they dropped a couple. I remember a couple dropping shorter,
which was very unusual, which was very, very un-Patrick McBrearty like. But you know,
you're right, Pat. No All-Star. Joins the likes of John Galvin, Taggy Fogarty, Tom Kenny, and these boys is one of the greatest to never finish a career without an All-Star.
Isn't that unbelievable? Yeah. I mean, that's unbelievable. Like, and that's just a look of geography. Like I said, if he was in Kerry, or if he was born in Dublin in the last and playing with the Dublins, he'd have 8 or 9 All-Stars. That's a great player. Couldn't say enough.
Pat, just a quick one, because I don't think I've spoken to you about it. David Clifford has kind of released his own clothing brand in association with McKeever. Nice gear as well, and he has that, you know, that silhouette of the left leg cocked up at the far ear. What do you think of this? It's something we're going to see. I'm all for it, and I'm all for players getting anything they can out of the game within reason, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I say fair play to him because the inter-county career is short. You don't get much, you're not being paid. So if you get an opportunity to make a few bob from endorsements, whether it is playing gear or whatever, and David has a couple of, I see he does Davies, he works with Super Value, he has his own playing gear. And if he can make millions, I wouldn't begrudge him 1 penny of it. He deserves everything of it.
I'd say there's a fair bit of, whether it's socks or shorts or jerseys, going to end up in Christmas stockings this year down around your way.
Well, it's a great, but like, you know, it's a sort of catch-22 in a way, because he's in the same week he was advertising his playing gear, and in the same week Kerry used them out to advertise their new playing.
What do you think of that? What do you think of the new jersey, Kerry jersey?
You know, it doesn't bother me at all, really, to be quite honest. If they win the All-Ireland, it's the greatest jersey of all time, and it'll be the biggest seller and whatever like that. So I don't really read much into it. Okay.
Pat, just quickly, Dingle's Munster final victory obviously is a few weeks old at this stage. Well, what a game of football! What a game of football!
I was just talking about it with somebody today. It was an absolutely cracking game, and I think was it 64 minutes. And there was 50 shots at goal. That is an unbelievable. It was everything about the good rules, about the new rules was there. Attacking football at its very best. And the cruelty of sport laid bare. But like we talked about Kearton Hughes' pint. I mean, the pint by Dylan Gainey, he kicked the pint from the sideline against the, he had the wind in the second half, which was as good a pint as Kearton Hughes'. Conor Gainey's pint to win the game. What a pressure kick. Stephen Sherlock, like I said, he's 16 shots.
What did you think of the 50 metre, the ball being brought up? Was it brought up 50 metres even? Because if it was brought up 50, it probably would have been maybe just inside the 2-point arc.
It's an interesting thing. I've looked at, and it divides opinion. I would have had a bigger issue with the foul on Ian Maguire, the first instant, because he was pulled for overplaying the ball. I don't think he did. But this is actually, it's interesting with the new rules, referees' interpretation. And most referees in the modern game now tend to be very hard on the guy in possession.
Yeah.
Even when, to me, he appears to be fouled, and they pull a guy, and they usually tend to pull him for over-carrying. You say, that's not over-carrying. He's been fouled. And Sean Hurston last week in the Ulster final had a completely different interpretation, where the guy in possession got the free, which probably suited Scottstown. I didn't think Ian Maguire was fouled, but after that, everything that Chris Maguire, the referee, did was correct, because don't tell me that the Finn, I remember talking to the club manager, and he said at the start of the year, they brought in one of the county referees here in Kerry, and the one thing he said was, if the ball is on the ground, leave it there, let it there. The ball was on the ground, and the Finbass player picked it up. Was he aware of what was happening? Of course he was. Players know exactly that the free is which way it's going. So Chris Maguire was right in penalising the Finbass player. The 50-metre thing, it's a grey area.
They may take out the meter stick, Pat, or the little trundle wheel.
Do you have to mark a Gaelic pitch like in American football, where every 10 metres there's lines across? Because there's no doubt about it. If you can remember, he penalised Dingle just before that, and he brought the ball up for Stephen Sherlock to kick, which he subsequently kicked wide. And now, referees tend to bring it up somewhere between 40 and anything up to 55 metres. So it is a grey area, but swings and roundabouts. Obviously, it was the deciding score, but there's no doubt about it. Sherlock got 3 2-pointers in the first half. 2 of them most definitely were not fouled. And one of the 2-pointers was a foul by Tom O'Sullivan, which had clearly taken place inside the arc, but was moved outside. So, look, swings and roundabouts. I think the referee got the descent rule right, and I think it's a good rule. People say, well, what were the rules you like? And I was just thinking, what is the rule I like? There's so many things about the new rules that it's given the game back to the players. It's allowed the skillful player to thrive. And I was looking at a stat, and say, well, give me something definite that has allowed the skillful player to thrive, or example. And I think the blanket defence, everything, there's so many good things, the descent rule, the solo and go, the 2-point scoring. But do you remember the dodo and the dinosaur? They're now extinct. And Eureka, the blanket defence, is now extinct. It's gone. And remember the All-Ireland final of last year between Armagh and Donegal, and the 6 inside forwards of Armagh and Galway got the grand total of 1 point from play, because it was like trying to fucking score in a phone box because it was so crowded. This year's All-Ireland final, on to hazard a guess, how many points, and I'm counting Paddy Clifford because he was listed to start as quarter forward. How many points from play were scored by the listed full forward lines?
Oh, more than 15 anyway.
22.
Yeah. 13
by Kerry and 9 by Donegal. And that, in a nutshell, sums up the beauty of the game, that is given the time and space for the forwards to operate. So, good day's work. I forgot the question.
Don't worry about it. It's not the first time. I was going to ask you your highlights for 2025, but I think your highlight for 2025 is that football is back. Yeah. I asked Milan the same question on the hurling podcast. What's on your wish list for 2026, or what do you see happening in 2026? Be it a bolter of a team that will come out of the pack, a team that will underperform, or what are you looking at? What do you think? What do you think is going to surprise us in 2026?
I think no different than what I said at the start of this year, that there's probably more teams in with a chance of winning the All Ireland now than there was, say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And you could give a chance, a realistic chance to Kerry, To Galway, I would even throw Mayo in there. To Dublin, 4. Armagh, Derry, Tyrone, Donegal. I'm at 8 now. I could throw, and I'm sure there's 1 or 2 more, but 8, 9 counties. Will there be any bolter? Last year was very enjoyable in the sense there was 1 or 2 shocks, but at the end of the day, there really wasn't that many shocks. Yeah. Louth winning the Leinster was brilliant. After 68 years, that was brilliant. But was there many more shocks?
Meath and Galway.
Meath and
Kerry. Meath and Dublin. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Meath and Dublin, I think, was because this was the Dublin juggernaut, which was again going to win another Leinster title, a foregone conclusion, and decisively beaten. Yeah, but the Meath and Galway, yeah, not really. Meath and Kerry, yeah, but Kerry had an understrength team on the day. So what am I looking for? Well, I think it's really more of the same. I think the same counties will be still. You'll be wondering whether Ger Brennan can get a kick back in Dublin. Can Andy Morden get one last kick out of some of his heroes in Mayo? I think they can, I mean, I look at...
Kobe MacDonald is going to help Mayo win All Ireland and then sail off into the sunset.
Well, he's a beautiful player. He's a black player. But, I think... I of all the highlights of... the perfect game probably doesn't exist, or the perfect performance doesn't exist. But from a biased Kerry supporter, Shangri-La in 2025 was in 14 minutes. 14 minutes. What was that 14 minutes? When Kerry outscored Armagh by 14 points to 0. Giving an exhibition of fielding but kicking that I have never seen in any 14 minutes ever in Croke Park. That was paradise. That was Shangri-La. Against arch enemies Armagh, 2 points down, and suddenly you score 14 points without reply. Magic.
I'd say that 14 minutes has haunted Kieran McKinney over the winter, I'd say. I'm wondering how it happened and how someone didn't do something to arrest the slide. Pat, we threw it out to all our listeners and all our viewers, and we asked them to ask Pat anything. So I'm going to fire a few quick fire ones at you. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Mark McCartan on X says, ask Spillane, did he ever play hurling, and what does he like about it?
What I dislike about it, from my point of view, was it was too skillful. I wasn't able to play it. I was absolutely shite at hurling. But I did play underage, under 12, under 14, under 16, and probably minor with Kinmare. And it's well regarded. I did play first year hurling, freshers hurling.
Go away.
I played freshers hurling for the National College, NCP.
With who? Surely a few big names you would have played alongside.
I can tell you this. Wait. National College of Physical Education. I can remember one day, freshers hurling, playing in Monaleen pitch in Limerick. I remember the Downey sisters. Why used of Kilkenny were on the sideline the same day. I think maybe they were teachers. I was full forward. Now, I could kick the ball better than I could puck the ball. And I was marked at full forward we had only 15 players. Larry McCarthy, the GA president, he was in goals. And geez, Larry was a bad goalie. He was even worse than I was. He had the clue. We had 1 or 2. We had Pat Donoghue from Galway who could play hurling. Lord mercy, so he's dead since. No, we might have had 2 more who could play hurling. But I was marked that day at full forward. We were playing St. Pat's Training College of Drumcondra.
I know where you're going here.
And I was marked by some fella called Brian Cody. Whatever happened to him, I wonder. Did he ever make anything?
He knew a thing or two about the small ball, so it proved later.
And I was yellow as well. It was snow.
Really? No, but see, Pat, it's funny. Hurling is very dangerous if you don't know how to play it, but it's actually very safe when you know how to play it.
I was scared. I was in fear. And like I said, I just dropped the hurling and kicked the ball. But I love hurling. The problem with hurling is it's too skillful for most people, and unless I remember John Loughnane telling me one day, he said, if you haven't got all the skills by 12, he says, forget about it.
Go away. Okay. He knew, and he was in college with Cody at the time.
You know, I think he could have been.
Yeah,
Maybe
he was. Yeah, he was. He famously said when Cody took over Kilkenny that we're all in trouble now, and he was right. He was right.
He was right.
A couple of other questions. There's a kind of a two-pronged question here from Brendan Falvey here. He said, "Hi guys, love the podcast. I have two questions for Pat Spillane. We'll just go with the
Actually, he's from Killarney.
He
I played with his father, Lottimer, so Seamus Falvey with St. Brendan's College, and we have Munster College's medals together. I bet you that.
Okay. Well, he's definitely from Kerry anyway, because he said, when and where was the famous photo of the gang of 5 with 8 All-Irelands each taken? I think winter 86 in Austin Stacks Park, but can Pat confirm?
Right, I'm going to leave it. Right, 1 second.
He's gone, but he'll be back. I'm assuming he's going to come back with photographic evidence. I'd imagine he will. He's not going too far anyway.
Believe it or not, Michael, it's hanging on the wall outside.
Oh, go away! It can't come down.
God. It's one of the few. It's probably the only football photograph that's on the wall. And this is a fact. We got presented. Geez, I need the date. Hang on a minute now. I'm back again.
He'll be back. He doesn't have too much memorabilia or anything like that in the house, but this is one thing. I don't know if it can come down, but he'll take the details and bring it.
I have it now. On the 18th of January 2020, right? And bear in mind, just before COVID started, the 30th dinner dance of the Kerry Supporters Club. 2020 now, think of the year. And they decided to make a presentation to the lads who had 8 All-Ireland medals. Obviously, Paddy, Lottimer, so I was gone. You would Ogie. Anyway, the reason they did it is because they said, "Fuck, we want to make a big thing of it because those fuckers in Dublin win the 5 in a row." So it was before then, and the photograph was taken. I just checked it. It was taken in Tralee, and it is an iconic photograph. All right, it's one of the great photos taken in Tralee, and Brendan is probably right around that date.
86. Okay.
But yeah, so I have it in the wall. And it's a lovely photograph, and I look at it I swear to God, when I be going watching television, I look at it every day, and I swear to God, Jesus brings back memory. There isn't a day I pass it that I don't think of some instant or something, whether it's with Paddy or whatever like that, or Ogie or whatever. Brilliant.
You, Paddy, Ogie, Jacko?
No, Jacko wasn't. Oh, Jesus.
You were the 5. How many? Is it 5, is it, altogether?
It's 5. So Jesus, I'm gone again.
Mikey Shee has the 5, has he?
Yeah.
Mikey Shee, Pat Spillane, Ogie Moore, Paddy O'Shea, and...
That's it. 5.
5. I think I've only named 4.
Paddy Shea. Isn't it desperate? Isn't it desperate? I don't have a clue about some of my G. So it's Ogie Morton, Paddy Shea, Ger Power.
Ger Power's the one, yeah. Ger Power's the 5th. Mikey Sheehy.
Mikey Shea, Ogie Morton, Ger Power, Paddy Shea, myself.
Yes. Okay. Very good.
Oh yeah. So they presented us before lockdown of COVID, and before we got presented with. My poor wife is after coming in. She thinks the show's over.
The second part of his question, he just says at the end here, I'll read this out first. He says, "Thanks to Pat and the Golden Years team for signing my jersey recently. They were all gentlemen and we're so proud of them." And then he just says, the second question, "I noticed recently after watching the end of the 86 final, 2 Kerry players ran towards the ball after the whistle and tried to grab it. At the end of the 81 final, I noticed Jack O'Shea and Paddy O'Shea did the same. Does Pat know who got the 81 and 86 footballs? Where are they now? And who got the other 6? Was this a thing year in, year out, that you were going running for the ball?"
Jacko got that. You'd nearly I'd nearly put my odds on Paddy, because probably Paddy had it for the bar. Because there was I remember in the early 70s, there was a famous National Football League game between Kerry and Derry, and it was abandoned. And I think it was Paul Kelly of Dublin was the referee. Mico Dwyer was playing in it at the time. And I remember there was a big thing after saying, because Mico was around the referee, and he was being praised for protecting the referee. I said, "Fair play to you, Mico." Oh, he says, "I wasn't protecting him at all. I was trying to get the ball." and in fairness, I will say this about Mico and in the 80s. There wasn't a training session after a game that we hadn't a ball belonged to whoever we had played. He was a master at getting a Monaghan ball, a meatball, or 2 cock footballs or whatever like that. So probably Paddy. I put my bet. But you're right. I remember that incident. Jacko and somebody else ran to get the ball at 4 in a row.
It's gas, isn't it?
Didn't see anyone running for the ball after 5 in a row. Not really. No,
I wouldn't think so. Last one, Pat. This is from David. It came in via the email, indogapodcast@independent.ie. He just said, one for Spillane. He says, Joe and the lads, this is Joe Malaya and the Indo Sport podcast, we're speaking about the Dingle and St Finbarr's Munster football final a few days ago, and mentioned Mark O'Connor, Geelong AFL player, and his duel with Brian Hayes, who he puts in brackets is an amateur GA player. It raises the question, should this be allowed? Is it right for professional athletes to partake in club championship games? Mark O'Connell of Geelong and Dingle, Mark Keane of Adelaide and Ballygiblin, and back in the days Zach Toohey of Geelong and Portlaoise, going back to play for their clubs during the off season. Should the GA enforce something around this? It feels as if it's almost taking the piss out of the amateur ethos a bit, not to mention shafting some lad who has been training all year when the boys come back from Oz. Surprised this isn't more of a debated issue already. Keen to hear you and the panel's thoughts. I have a fair idea what you might say about this.
I have a fair idea what somebody in Dingle would say, and they'd say, great. It was brilliant, because if we didn't have Mark O'Connor back, we probably wouldn't have won the first ever club county title and the first ever Munster club title. Does anyone in Dingle begrudge him? Is there a player on the panel that begrudge Mark? Absolutely not. I remember one time, it was a very fair question. I remember I was in charge of Khmer under 21s, and we played in the county final, and we subsequently won it. I didn't offer my services to Kerry under 20, but the manager at the time said he'd ring me back.
You're still waiting. I think maybe you didn't pay the phone bill on the house or something like that.
Well, we had a quandary. We got into the county final, but one of our lads who had been in America all the year for the summer had missed all the games. He was back. I remember asking Kevin McStay, who I always regard as one of the shrewdest judges in football. I said, Kevin, what should you do? Should you stick to the 15 guys who were loyal to and brought to the final, or should you include the guy who was away in America? And he said, Pat, he says, and I'll always think about it, he said, Pat, you pick your best team. You pick your best 15. Dingle picked his best, picked their best 15, and that's why Mark O'Connor was included. That's why their success. Yeah, I get, but hold him in, like, years ago, you'd say, professional trained athlete, poor old amateur GA fella, Paddy Brown-Bross and the boys, twin pints in the pub on Friday night, and they're playing against it. Those days are gone. GA players are as professional, are as fit, are as conditioned as any professional player. And like you said, it's not just in recent years with the AFL you've had professional. You've always had professionals or semi-professionals playing against amateur GA players, be it from League of Ireland soccer, be it from basketball, be it from rugby. So it's nothing new. Do I have an issue with it? Absolutely not. Does it make a huge difference? Absolutely not.
Yeah, and to me, like, Mark O'Connor is intrinsically linked with Dingle and will be forever. And he'd be playing for Kerry if he wasn't over there. And like, he's gone to the trouble of getting, his getting permission from a professional team. They value him that much that they're giving him permission to go and play a sport where he could get hurt and affect his professional career. Yeah. That's how much he wants to play.
Yeah, once upon a time you could have said, there's safety issues. This finely conditioned player against a badly conditioned player. They're all equals now. The GA player is just as conditioned as an AFL player. And they'll tell you that themselves. The Aussie boys will tell you that themselves. That the conditioning of inter-county players now is just unreal. They are, like, the GA player are professional athletes in all bar the fact that they're not being paid.
Yeah.
Hard question that was now.
Yeah, no, there was a good one to it. This is a question from me to you, Pat, at the end, because you brought up this guy's name, and I think he is one of the biggest, like, phenomenons out there in sport and any sport, and some people don't consider it a sport. What do you make of Luke Littler?
Look, because I love all sports, right? It's very easy for somebody in one sport to slag off another sport. That cricket is boring, and or horse racing. I look at all sports, and I I admire the skill of the sports people in all sports. I'm always intrigued about tactics. Like my wife is intrigued. I'd watch horse racing, so I could do 4 hours of horse racing, and I'd be wondering, will they win? And she'd be wondering. She said, "You don't bet in any of the horses. Why are you so engrossed?" I'm just intrigued. There's a gamble. Will it pay off? Will it go astray? Tactics, getting the fractions right, and you start to say, "That's brilliant." And it's cricket. I love cricket. I'm in the middle of the Abu Dhabi T20 at the moment. I watch India and South Africa during the week. Jeez, was a cracking game. Luke Littler, I loved. You could say overweight as a punk. It's not anything with skill. You just admire skill. I use this piece of information. I did play. I've played against 2 world champions. Played against Ken Doherty in snooker in an exhibition.
I played against Steve Davis one time in Burr, would you believe, yeah?
Okay, here's another one. Before Luke Littler and Luke Humphreys and I played against the greatest dart player of all time.
John Lowe or Eric Bristow or Phil Taylor? Phil Taylor.
Phil the Power Taylor. And do you know where he was playing?
Wow.
Because I brought a big gang from... he was playing in Jackie Healy's Ray's Bar in Kilgarvan. Phil the Power Taylor. And he was staying... He had a camper van with his name on the side of it. And he was sleeping outside in the camper van, Main Street, Kilgarvan. And it cost me in the bar... we had to bring... I think it cost €100, £100, I suppose, at the time. It was a long time ago. So I brought 3 of my customers from the bar to pay. So he paid about, say, 10 or 12 of them. And he took about £1,200 for the night, which was good money. But I always remember one thing to know, like if anyone was a bit smart, he'd really pulverise them. And one fella he played, I'll never forget it, he put a newspaper over the dartboard every time he shot. And he still beat your man. I said, Jesus, that's. So I do. I love all sports. I'll be, and I'm not a dart. I don't watch a lot of darts, but I'll be engrossed in the darts for the next 2 weeks. I'll be wondering who would win or whatever like that. Brilliant. I love sport. It's my escape valve. It's my drug. It's my release from the pressures and the stress of everyday life. You sit down for 2 hours watching whatever sport, and you become engrossed and captivated by that sport. And I don't slag off any sport. I love all sports.
Pat, I'll leave you with this one. Stevens' Day, there's a tip in this. I'm involved in a horse. He's named after an Offaly football legend, and he's running on Stevens' Day in Leopardstown. Keep an eye out for it. I'm not going to give you the name. You can deduce it for yourself. Right. But it'll be in around 2 o'clock in Leopardstown on Stevens' Day.
Look, I was involved, like 2 things. Like I was involved in both greyhound racing and horse racing, right? So I won't mention the track, but we had a dog called Spillane's Bar and another dog called Spillane Pat, right? Spillane Pat. I could run faster than Spillane Pat now. He was fucking red useless. But anyway, we won't mention the track, but he was always last every day or second last. And the manager of the track said, you know, Pat, he said, it might be a good idea, you know, if we got Spillane Pat, let him win a race. And I said, geez, that'd be great. He said, what trap do you want? I always said trap 1. Anyway, we go to the track. The dog starts favourite. The dog finishes second last. And your man, the manager's really apologetic. And he says, oh, geez, really sorry about that. I thought they were the worst 5 dogs we had that come into this track. But he says, will you give me another chance? I said, oh, geez, we will, of course, yeah. So he said, look, I'll find 5 worst dogs over into the track. Spillane Pat is running. We put him on the outside lane. He was a bit light. He got shoved around. Put him on the outside. Starts favourite again. Why does he start favourite? He wins by a nose. And we say, do you know, instead of saying, fucking lads now, it's time to run here, do you know? We thought, Jesus Christ, you know, maybe this dog just mightn't be that bad after all. That's the way we lost the fashion. And then greyhound racing. I had our horses. I was in loads of syndicates. I walked in with the first horse we had was a horse called Rinuccini, useless piece of information, first papal nuncio to come to Ireland. He came up Kinmare Bay, ran in Tipperary. Dennis O'Regan was the jockey, but I walked in, and the man alongside me was John Magner. How did he? And Rinuccini, it's a bumper. After the first link in Tipperary, he was winning by a mile. And the second round, he collapsed. But Jesus, like, I had to admire, in fairness to the Horsey boys, they never told you and all the various things. They never said, Pat, lads, he's useless.
No.
He needs a left-handed track. He needs a right-handed track. He needs juice in the ground. He needs to go fucking an extra furlong.
I've often thought about this, Pat. Imagine a GA manager came in after a match and said, the ground wasn't for us today, or we need a bigger pitch, or we need a smaller pitch.
Or the lads scoped badly. I remember Dennis Regan, he was a great job. I remember he saying, and we're standing in the parade ring with our mouths wide open, and he said, lads, like I said, he'll win a race sometime, lads. I said to him, Dennis, for fuck's sake, the only race he'll win is the Donkey Derby and the Horseracing Festival. Anyway, and I was right. Anyway.
Pat, super stuff as always. I'd just like to wish you and your family all the best over the Christmas time. Enjoy it, kick the feet up, watch as much sport as you like. And I'd also just like to say thanks to everybody who's commented, viewed, listened throughout the past year. Hugely successful year for the podcast, and we'll be bigger and better in 2026.
Absolutely.
And looking forward to it. Pat, thanks very much.
Happy Christmas.